In all honesty, guys, what we're about to talk to today is one of the most absurd things that I've seen in quite some time, and it's something that I think perfectly epitomizes everything wrong with the modern hobby. It epitomizes everything wrong with flipping and also the approach that people take with grading cards, because like you can see in the title and the thumbnail, you've essentially got people cleaning cards, damaging the autos as the result of that, but being comfortable because it results in a PSA 10, which is, insane to me. So I want to talk through the cards in question. I want to talk through how PSA's new T's and C's impact this, and then also why you guys need to be buying the card, not the holder. This is case in point with how stupid people are in this modern hobby, which is, something that I'll never, get tired of saying apparently, because it keeps happening. Now, today's story was first brought to my attention from Nomad Cards on Twitter. He tagged me amongst a few others, including Nat Turner and Auburn35, and goes on to talk about maybe this individual is cleaning cards, he's smudging those autographs in order to bump up the grades as part of the cleaning process, and it seems he has a history of doing so. And I was a bit confused over here. You could sort of see my comment, what am I missing? Because when I first saw this, I was like, are people actually going to damage an autograph? I didn't quite get it, but in fact, that is what is happening here, apparently. So what Nomad Card says in his post, before I show you the cards in question, is auto removal alteration. Will PSA deactivate this? I think they will. I'll talk to their T's and C's in a second. He goes on to say that it is truly insane. There are people willing to deface and ruin cards like this just for the sake of attempting to get a better grade, wax on, wax off, again, implying that cleaning is happening. Now, if we look at that Luca he referenced a little more closely, firstly, I should say this is the individual ACA Collectibles. This is their Instagram. I'll come back to them shortly. You can sort of see here it's a nice looking card, even if it is a Luka Doncic, aka Sports Card Radio's favorite player. Has a very nice looking autograph, if I'm, do saying so myself, and I do. It then shows up in a PSA 10 on this guy's page, and the autograph looks very, very faded. And if you jump between them, you can clearly see that, something has happened to that autograph. And what Nomad and a few others are sort of implying here is that the guy's maybe, taken this card as raw, or maybe as a PSA 9 previously. I can't recall if this one was one of those. Sprayed it down with something, wiped it down. Some of that happened to go on the autograph, which is why it's been, smudged away, in order to get that PSA 10. And this guy obviously does not care, because he says PSA 10, bang, it's amazing. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because he's obviously posted it on his page. This is, in fact, the same card. But he, didn't really flag the fact that the autograph went from that to this, right? You would think a drastic change like that might get you asking some questions. Maybe PSA damaged it, maybe something happened. You would expect some kind of comment. But the reason why this is sort of interesting and goes one step further is what Nomad found was, this is not the only card that looks questionable like that. There's also, a Jordan Love card that was previously graded as a PSA 9, and this is, again, like that Luka, confirmed to be the same card when I show you the different iterations of it. This is that same card, again, shown as raw on his page to show that he did, in fact, own it, and the autograph is very, very nice looking once again. It then shows up in a PSA 10 on his page, and the autograph is very clearly faded once again, more than likely implying that some kind of cleaning compound was used on this card in order to bump the grade up. Some of it obviously went on the autograph and made it fade once again. And to go one step further, there's yet another card on his page that is also faded. Now, what is interesting about this is, since all this, pushback came from Nomad Cards and Auburn35 and a few others, those cards have been deleted from, his Instagram. They're no longer there, which I think is another step towards the point of saying this guy was cleaning these cards, he was doing this intentionally, and he's now maybe trying to hide the evidence. I noticed a bit earlier too, when I was scrolling through here, this card here of James Wood is also slightly faded, and you can sort of see it in a few spots. Now, maybe this is just a streaky marker, but when you're seeing all these things, guys, you need to start asking those kinds of questions. And just, never ceases to amaze me what kind of lengths people will go to in order to, make more money. And this is why I get frustrated when I see stuff like this, because people say, well, you're just cleaning cards, what's the big deal? Well, it's not just cleaning cards, because clearly it's damaging these autographs, which could have gone into somebody's PC, right? This is a card that somebody would have loved to have owned, irrespective of whether it's in a PSA 9 or a 10. And this has now ruined that for somebody. And maybe there is not enough card collectors out there to actually want a Jordan Love rookie ticket auto, but you guys get what I'm trying to say here. It goes beyond just cleaning things, right? It impacts others. And we still don't even know, what these compounds and chemicals and cleaning solutions do to these cards long term. It's why PSA have updated their T's and C's. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to clarify once again, I'm not saying this guy has 100% cleaned these cards, but when you look at these photos, it's pretty hard to argue against it. So, take it as a grain of salt with what I've said, make up your own mind as always. But It's just, frustrating, like I've said a few times now. Now, like I just mentioned, and as I said in the intro, PSA have recently updated their T's and C's to specifically call out card cleaning and waxing as being doctored items. You can sort of see that in these two policy updates over here, doctored and inauthentic items, fraud prevention and investigation, because they go on to explicitly state that it's not limited to, or just limited to, trimming, recoloring, bleaching, power racing. It now includes cleaning, waxing, which weren't there previously in their T's and C's. And what they go on to say over here is that as part of your submission process, you're sort of agreeing that you're not going to participate in any of this doctoring, and that if in fact you do, they sort of have legal recourse to go after you, because they sort of see it as enhancing the appearance and condition of the card or content. And from PSA's perspective, they're trying to mitigate some of that risk, right? That's why I've explained in the past that it's a bad thing, because PSA do have a guarantee in place. So when I've referenced in the past that doing this sort of stuff is questionable because you don't know what it's going to do to it long term, the only company that is really on the hook is PSA, because they're standing by this grade. Something has happened to it that they can't spot, which is a whole other conversation. But that then exposes them to unnecessary risk. That's what they've gone ahead and tried to fix with this, which I think is super important, which is why I think PSA is probably going to go after this guy and deactivate these cards if they haven't already. I haven't checked the certs in the last hour or so, but I wouldn't have thought they would have done that at this time of day in Australia. But it's sort of like a watch this space kind of thing. I think the guy has had, a bit of an admission of guilt by deleting those photos from his Instagram once he got some pushback. But it is what it is. We need to watch this space. I still think, my gut is telling me that this person cleaned these cards. I think that's pretty obvious if you've got common sense, but, that's not the whole fact. So maybe this guy, didn't do it, and this is just a coincidence, and PSA damage these things. Make up your own mind, as always. But when you're seeing these things get deleted when pushback comes, I think that is a bit of an admission of guilt, in my opinion. Now, I also said at the start of the intro, aside from the whole PSA situation, that this just reeks of the modern hobby, right? Everything wrong with the mindset of buying PSA slabs and paying premiums for them just because they're in a PSA slab, because there are people out there that would 100% pay a premium for this Jordan Love, even though it has a smudged auto, just because it says PSA 10 on there. And they'd pay that premium over this PSA 9 copy, which clearly has, a much nicer autograph. It is in fact the same card. This one is just, been altered in some capacity. But there are people out there that would pay that premium despite those two differences if they had them side by side, which is, absurd to me. You've also got people out there that would, see this PSA 10 Luca with that faded auto and still pay PSA 10 prices. It's like, no, guys. Just because it says PSA 10 on there does not mean shit. And I'm just shocked that, still in 2024, we've got people out there, still feeling the need to say, buy the card, not the holder. And you guys might think this is like an isolated incident or whatever, but go to card shows. You see it firsthand. Watch card show vlogs. You see it firsthand. Watch other people's videos. You see it firsthand. People are out there sheeping their way through this thing, and it's just crazy to me, because in all reality, this thing, despite being a PSA 10, should not really be selling for all that much amount of money because of the autograph. Because it's fading. We don't know why it's fading. If we assume no cleaning was done, is the autograph sun damage? Is it some other issues that are going to deteriorate over time? And people would still be paying a premium for this. It's just crazy. Like, personally, I'd much rather own this raw and pay more for this raw than what this PSA 10 would be worth if I wanted a Luka Doncic card. I don't, but that's how I'd feel about the situation, because this thing looks a shit ton nicer than what this one does. And the same thing with these Jordan Love cards. It's like, guys, what are we doing here? Like, what are we honestly doing here? Like, why are people purely paying more for this because it says a 10 instead of a 9? Like, guys, buy the freaking card, not the holder. I don't understand why that shit still needs to be said in 2024. I just don't get it. And it's good for us, right, as collectors, because we can go ahead and buy those 9s and those 8s that look a lot better than what they actually are, or buy those raw cards for cheaper than what we probably should be able to buy them for. Because there's so many idiots out there, cleaning cards to get that 10 and then damaging those cards over a long period of time, or, damaging the autographs on those cards, ruining it for a collector's purpose, but then, willing to sell it to another flipper so nobody really gives a shit. It's like this never-ending cycle of, BS money and BS cards that keep getting propped up and propped up and propped up. So I'm going to cut myself short before I go on a rant, but it's just, again, another case. Guys, buy the freaking card, not the holder. Like, it's just crazy to me. So, share your thoughts on anything we've discussed today down below. I really appreciate you guys. As always, apologies if the video had to be cut a few times. I'm actually pretty sick at the moment. I've coughed quite a few times, so I've tried to edit that out, or I will try and edit that out. But I've already clipped the video up, so I hope it comes across smoothly, but you know, I'm rambling. You guys don't care to hear that. I apologize. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.